Hello friends, welcome to my channel Learning Hub. In this channel, I have started to discussing different important points, important topics. And my first topic is that the biodiversity of India. In my first video, I already started about this biodiversity of India, and I have discussed a few points on this topic. That is the first 4 points I've already discussed in my first video. That is the what is the biodiversity of India, what are the biodiversity conservation, what are the different classification of biodiversity of India, and what are the different biogeographic regions and provinces of the India. So in this video, I will going to discuss next 3 points. That is the what are the different categories of existing plants and animal species as per IUCN. What are the different reserved, protected and unclassified forests? What are the different nature reservoirs of the India? Okay, remaining 2 parts I will discuss in 2 different videos. So let's start. So our first topic is that today's first topic is that different categories of existing plants and animal species. So based on the International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, that is IUCN, existing plants and animal species classified as follows. What are these? The first one is the normal species. Normal species are the species whose population levels are considered to be normal for their survival, such as cattle, shal, pine, rodents, etc. So these type of species, the population of these type of species are considered to be normal for their survival. Okay, so for the survival of any species, they have some category that if the population level for any species is suppose x, then it will considered as a normal or it is greater than x. But if it is less than x, then it will considered as a different type of other. It will be categorized in the different type of other type of species. Okay. Second one is the endangered species. What are the endangered species? These are the species which are in danger of extinction. The survival of such species is difficult if the negative factors that have led to a decline in their population continue to operate. So why it is species are endangered for extinction? Why it is these species are endangered for extinction? Danger for extinction because the if the survival of these species are difficult for negative factors. Negative factors, there are different type of negative factors like the if for natural calamities, population, deforestation, or any poaching. So if it will be if these negative factors will work, then this population will lead to decline and it is difficult to continue to operate. So these type of species are called the endangered species. The example of the species are black buck, crocodile, Indian wild ass, Indian rhino, lion-tailed macaw, Shanghai, etc. Okay. Vulnerable species. What are the vulnerable species? These are the species whose population has declined to the level from where it is likely to move into the endangered category in the near future if the negative factors continue to operate. So these vulnerable species are such species, their population is lower than the normal population which will be required for their survival. And if continuously negative uh, factors is working on this species, in near future it will move to the endangered category. And the example of the species are blue sheep, Asiatic elephant, Gangetic dolphin, etc. Okay. Fourth one is that rare species. Rare species are the species with small population may move into the endangered or vulnerable category if the negative factors affecting them continue to operate. Okay. Example of such species are Himalayan brown bear, wild Asiatic buffalo, desert fox, and hornbill, etc. Okay. Okay. Fifth one is the endemic species. These are species which are only found in some particular areas, usually isolated by natural or geographical barriers. So this endemic species, I already discussed this endemic species in my previous video. So these endemic species are the species which are only found in some particular areas. In particular means that in particular, suppose in particular national park or in particular biomes. Okay. So example of the species are Andaman tail, Nicobar pigeon, Andaman wild pig, Mithun in Arunachal Pradesh. Okay. These species can be found on this particular region only. Extinct species. These are species which are not found after searches of known or likely areas where they may occur. A species may be extincted from a local area, region, country, continent, or the entire earth. Example of such species are Asiatic cheetah, pink-headed duck, etc. So extinct means that these type of species are now, it will be not found in anywhere where their habitat can be found. Okay, and now this will be extincted from their, maybe it will be extincted, maybe some species are in the endemic species of the particular region, but maybe for an example I can say that suppose one species is endemic to a Indian subcontinent, but it also found in some other country also, and in some different scenarios, for different negative factors, this endemic species of Indian subcontinent can be extinct, but it can be found anywhere, other countries also where there, and in somehow in it is also possible that this extinct species cannot be found anywhere, not only particular local area, region, country or continent, or either entire earth. As per IUCN Red List version 2010.4, 94 species of mammals, 78 species of birds, 66 species of amphibians, 30 species of reptiles, 122 species of fish, 130 species of invertebrates, and 255 species of plants in India are listed as critically endangered, endangered, or vulnerable. So far, 758 animal and plant species are listed as globally threatened in India by IUCN, which is about less than 1% of species documented in India. Okay. So critically endangered animal species in India. These are the lists of some critical endangered species of India. Some critical endangered mammals are the Himalaya brown or red bear, pygmy hawk, Andaman white-tooth shrew, uh, Condona rat, Namdafa flying squirrel, etc. Critically endangered reptiles are gharials, hawksbill turtle, leatherback turtle, four-toed river terrapin or the river terrapin. Okay, so these are the some typical endangered reptiles. Some critical endangered species that Pondicherry shark, Ganges shark, knife-toothed sawfish, large-toothed sawfish. So if you said there is a this one is the knife-toothed sawfish. These are species. Some critically endangered coral is fire corals. These are the picture of this fire coral. Critically endangered spiders is that Rameshwaram ornamental or Rameshwaram parachute spider. These are the picture of the parachute spider. Okay. Critically endangered amphibians is the Andamalai flying frog. This is the picture of the Andamalai flying frog. Kerala Indian frog, Charles Darwin frog. So these are the some critically endangered amphibians. Critically endangered birds are the Jordan goatser, white-billed heron, Bengal florican, etc. These are the some critical endangered animal species of India. So if you are interested, please you can note this down, this list. Okay. Okay. Now this topic is that reserve, protected and unclassified forests. The crucial ecosystem for India is its forest, and it is covering about 24.56% or about 8 lakh square kilometer of the geographical area. And in this area, there is the dense forest is 12.4%, open forest 9.26%, and mangrove is 0.15%. Okay. And with this type of and this forest which is covering 24.5%, out of these 75% of this forest are occurs in the northeastern states, northeastern states, and counting over 16 major forest types and 251 subtypes. Okay. Now this is one is very important thing is that according to the State of Forest Report 2009, the dense forest cover has increased by 3,976 kilometers since 2017. Okay. This apparent increase in the forest cover due to conservation measures, management interventions, and plantation, etc., by different agencies. And in these different agencies, it will be done by some public-private joint partnerships, some measurement taken by our government of India. Okay. So, and due to some and other this plantation management, so our dense forest has increased by 3,976 kilometers since 2017. Okay. In India, much of its forest and wildlife resources are either owned or managed by the government through the forest department or other government departments. These are classified under the following categories. Okay. So what are the categories? At the reserve, first one is the reserve forest. More than half of the total forest land has been declared reserve forest. Reserve forests are regarded as the most valuable as far as the conservation of forest and wildlife resources are concerned. Jammu and Kashmir, Andhra Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, West Bengal and Maharashtra have large percentage of reserve forest of its total forest area. The first reserve forest of India was Satpura National Park in Madhya Pradesh. Okay, so uh, uh, so the reserve forest is that it is the most valuable as far as the conservation of the forest and wildlife resources are concerned. Okay. Next one is that protected forest. What are the protected forest? Almost one third of the total forest area is protected forest as declared by the forest department. Okay, the forest land are protected from any further depletion. Bihar, Haryana, Punjab, Himachal Pradesh, Odisha and Rajasthan has a bulk of is under protected forest. Unclassified forest. These are other forests and wastelands belong to the both government and private individuals and communities. Some unclassed forests. All northeastern states and parts of Gujarat have very high percentage of their forest as unclassed forest managed by local communities. And if in terms of protection, the major protection is first is the national park, it is then it is then the wildlife sanctuary, then reserve forest, and then protected forest. So in terms of protection, the flow of the protection is such that first national park is the most protected, then wildlife sanctuaries, then reserve forest, and then the protected forest. Okay. Now we're going to discuss the nature reservoirs of India. Prevention of biodiversity is a must for the continued functioning of the planet as a whole. Any imbalance on account of human activity will lead to the extinction of species that are necessary for human survival. Thus, wildlife sanctuaries, biosphere reserves, national parks, conservation reservoirs, and community reservoirs are designated places for protecting wild plants, animals, and natural habitats. So, to balance to protect our diversity, to balance the world, natural world, and that also that it is also very much useful for the human survival. So we this type by these natural reservoirs, these nature reserves in different wildlife sanctuaries, biosphere reserves, national parks. Okay, there are some conservation reserves and community reserves. So these are the places where we protect the wild plants, animals, and natural habitats. We'll discuss everything in detail. Other reservoirs are tiger reserves, elephant reserves, Ramsar wetland sites, natural wild heritage sites, important coastal and marine diversity areas, that is ICMBS, important bird areas, IBS, biodiversity heritage sites, etc. Okay, so let's start. What is the national park? A national park refers to a territory or region that is specifically reserved by various governing bodies for the prevention of biodiversity and wildlife owing to its cultural, natural and historical importance. Okay, so it will be when if you call the what is the national park, the national park refers to a territory or region that is specifically reserved by various governing bodies for the prevention of biodiversity and wildlife owing its cultural, natural and historical importance. National parks are home to myriads of birds, animals, microorganisms and insects among others that belong to different species and genes that provide a secure and hygienic environment to them. So in the national park, we can preserve, we can protect different type of categories of birds, animals, microorganisms, insects, etc. The cultivation, plantation, grazing, predating and hunting of animals as well as destruction of flowers are strictly banned. So please note that cultivation, plantation, grazing, predating, hunting or of animals as well as destruction of flowers are strictly banned in the national parks. The official permission is required to access national parks. If you want to go in national parks, there is some official permission is required. The International Union of Conservation of Nature (IUCN) has designed national parks as a category in its category 2 of the protected zones. In India, there are 106 national parks are there in India. Out of 106, there are 6 national parks. Okay, 6 national marine parks. 6 are marine national parks out of these 106 national parks. So we see that the national park. Now we see the wildlife sanctuary. A wildlife sanctuary is an area of nature owned by the government or private agency for the protection of species of fauna during a part of the year or its entirety. So, if we see national park is owned by the government bodies. Okay, but wildlife sanctuary, it will be owned by government or a private agency, and it will be protection of species of fauna during a part of the year or its century. So or its entirety means that until its life has been there in that ecosystem. The aim of wildlife sanctuaries is usually to be safe asylums in which animals get the most suitable care possible that the wildlife sanctuaries can offer. In wildlife sanctuaries, not a single animal is traded, nor are they put into use for animal experiments. Also, no secretions from parts of the animals are used for commercial purposes, including wool, eggs, or milk. Okay, so these are the difference between a national park and the wildlife sanctuaries. Also, wildlife sanctuaries have lesser restrictions and no official permission is required to visit in wildlife sanctuary, whereas you can require official permission to enter a national park. The International Union for Conservation of Nature (IUCN) and its World Commission on Protected Area has specified wildlife sanctuary as its category 4 type of protected region, where national park is protected category 2. Total line of wildlife sanctuaries in India is 564. Okay, so these are the difference between a national park and a wildlife sanctuary. Now is the point is the conservation reserve. These reserves are created over areas owned by the state government and the areas adjacent to the national park and wildlife sanctuaries. So conservation reserves are the areas that is owned by the state government, and these conservation reserves are adjacent to the national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. State government declared an area as a conservation reserve after the consultation with the local communities. Conservation Reserve Management Committee is constituted with the reception of the state government and the local communities for administration of conservation reserves. IUCN has designed conservation reserves in its category 5 of the protected region. In India, total number of conservation reserves is 92. So conservation reserve is a type of reserve which is owned by the state government, and that the areas are adjacent to the national parks and the wildlife sanctuaries, and that will be there is one reserve on committee, and the committee is constituted by the state government and the uh, local communities. Maybe there are some tribes or some local peoples who will be settled on that particular region. So uh, that from that particular local community and the government, they will form a management committee to administrating this type of conservation reserves. Community reserves are also created by the state government on community land or private land. These reserves can be created by state government, provided that the members of a community offer their land to be declared as a protected area. Such a protected area would be conserve flora, fauna, as well as the customs and tradition of the local communities. The object of this declaring an area as a community reserve is to improve the socio-economic condition of the local community as well as to protect the wildlife. A community reserve is managed through Community Reserve Management Committee with representatives of local community and the state government. Total number of reserve is 163. So community reserve is something is like that. And why it is a difference from the conservation reserve? Conservation reserve is that conservation reserves are areas are owned by state government, and state government is declared the area as a conservation reserve, the concentration of local community, whereas this community reserve also created by the state government, but it will be on the community land or the private land, and and that the and these reservoirs can be created by the government, provided that the members of the community offer their land to declare as a protected area. So here state government cannot directly created these reserves until and unless the member of the community to be declared, provided to declare, offer their land. So local community, suppose one community, there are some communities, they offer the government to declare the land as a protected area to protect that particular community, also the wildlife, the plant species and everything, and that particular area. Okay, now this is the eco-sensitive zones or ecologically fragile areas. What are these eco-sensitive zones? Eco-sensitive zones, ESJs, or ecologically fragile areas, are areas notified by the MOEFCC around the protected areas, national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. These are the notified by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and the Climate Change. This is a ministry which will actually um, notify these areas, eco-sensitive zones around the protected area, national park and wildlife sanctuaries. So let's see why it will be. What is this one? The National Wildlife Action Plan 2002 to 2016 of MOFCC stipulated that state government should declare the land falling within 10 km of the boundaries of national parks and wildlife sanctuaries are eco-fragile zones or ESZ under the Environment Protection Act. So, suppose this is an national park. Okay, now this our government state, this Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, it asks the state government that the land area falling within the 10 kilometer of this boundary of the zone, these are the 10 kilometer of the boundary of the zone, that will be declared as a ESZ. Okay, the purpose of the ESZ is to provide more protection to the parks by acting as a shock absorber or transition zone. So, is it possible? It is possible that in this national park, some wild animals, they can be out from their protected areas, and if there is a settlement beside these national parks, then it can be harmful for that settlement, and that is harmful for that particular species, or if the and it also that the settlement or the people or the man, they can enter the protected area, these national parks, or in wildlife sanctuaries, and they harm the animals and plants. To protect this, so our under this Environmental Protection Act 1986, the MOEFCC asked state governments to declare a area as a eco-sensitive zones, and that area is that about the 10 kilometer of the boundaries of national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. Okay. They also act as a transition zone for areas of high protection to the areas involving lesser protection. Eco-sensitive zones would minimize forest depletion and man-animal conflict. The protected areas based on the core and buffer model of the management. The core area has legal status of being a national park. The buffer area, however, does not have legal status of being a national park and could be a reserve forest, wildlife sanctuaries, or tiger reserve. We will see this in the diagram also. Now, what is the biosphere reserve? Biosphere reserves are learning places for sustainable development. Very important. What is biosphere reserve? Biosphere reserves are learning spaces for sustainable development. They are the sites for testing interdisciplinary approaches to understand and managing changes and interaction between social and ecological systems, including conflict prevention and management of biodiversity. So this is the purpose of the biosphere reserve. Biosphere reserve include terrestrial, marine and coastal ecosystem. Biosphere reserves are identified by man and Biosphere Reserve Program to promote sustainable development. This program was initiated by UNESCO in 1971. May have one or more national parks or wildlife sanctuaries in a single Biosphere Reserve. Okay. So there are three types of Biosphere Reserves, Biosphere Reserve zones. First one is the core zone. It comprises a strictly protected zone that contributes to the conservation of landscapes, ecosystems, species, and the genetic variation. What are the buffer zone? It surrounds or adjoins the core area or areas and is used for activities compatible with the sound ecological practices that can reinforce scientific research, monitoring, training, and education. Transition area. The transition area is where communities foster eco-culturally and ecologically sustainable economic human activities. Total number of biosphere reserve in India is 18. We can see this biosphere reserve and everything in a diagram. So if you see this biosphere reserve, this orange color is the core zone, where it will be only for the purposes for the research purposes. Surrounding the green zone is the buffer zone, and in this buffer zone, this is for use for education and training, and there is few human settlement in this particular area, buffer zone. And the transition zone is the this light pink one, where it is used for also for this research, training, education in these areas, and also for the human settlement. And one of the example of this Pachmari Biosphere Reserve, which is in the Madhya Pradesh, you see that this Satpura National Park, it is a national park in this Biosphere Reserve, and there are two Bodi Sanctuary and one is a Pachmari Sanctuary. It is adjoined to it, and there is one Tower Reserve. So these are the areas. These are the example of a Pachmari Biosphere Reserve, where this Satpura National Park is the you show that is the core area. This sanctuary, Pachmari Sanctuary, and the Bodi Sanctuary and Tower Reserve, you can see that these are placed by Bodi Sanctuary. These are type of buffer zone, and the Tower Reserve, you can see these are the transition areas. Okay, so I have completed the three-part discussion in this video, 3 points. So in the next video, I will cover also. Okay, there is other point I am missed. That is that other natural reservoirs of India. That is the tiger reserves. There are total 53 and 3 approval is in progress in 2022. So after this 2022, there will be total 56 tiger reserves in India. Elephant reserves there is total 32. Crocodile reserves 16 rehabilitation centers and 11 crocodile sanctuaries. Important bird areas IBA total 467. Important coastal and marine biodiversity areas ICMBS that is total 107. Total Ramsar wetland site that is 49. National World Heritage Site, it is 17. 7. Biodiversity Heritage Site, it is 18. And Biodiversity Hotspot Site, it is 4. I will discuss detail in this all these type of reservoirs. What are the different type of reservoirs, which are thing, what is big, small, and what is the new, and I will detail discuss of this okay in other videos. So I have completed this discussion in these three points in today's video. So hope this is very informative and you will like the video. And if you like the video, please like, and please friends, please subscribe my channel for different type of videos. Okay. And if anything you want to comment, please comment in the section. I can improve my video or the content. Uh, I can try to improve my content and videos as you suggest. Okay. So thank you friends. We'll see in the next video. Thank you.